Hello everyone, good evening. So let's start the session today. I'll just share my screen. So yeah, today is day 15, the last day of your full stack course. So first we'll just cover through some of the theory part, and then at last we'll see how do we set up Firebase in our React application. Okay. So for the today's topic is it's something called as architectures in your web applications. So whenever you want to build a web application, right? So there are many ways you can build the same web application. So one of the ways called as monolithic. So monolithic means inside the name itself is written, mono means one. That means, like for example, you take an e-commerce website like Amazon. In Amazon, you have different services, right? For example, like user service to which manages all the users, and then product service, delivery service. So different services are there in your e-commerce website, like in Amazon. But the thing is, like when you follow monolithic architecture, right? Here, what happens? All the UI, basic logic, the database, backend, front end, everything will be inside a single application. Okay. Inside single application itself, you're building the whole thing. Okay. That is nothing but your monolithic architecture. So we'll just go through these key points. In a monolithic architecture is a software design pattern where application is built as single. Okay. That means it is usually built as a single pack. That means all your UI, business logic, database, everything here you can see it is a unified code base that contains all its component, including the UI logic database, which is tightly coupled as a single service. Okay. What are the key characters here? Here you can see this is single code base. That means the entire application contains all your functionality, your backend database, everything. And then this is tightly coupled, right? Since you have everything at a single place, that means it is tightly coupled. That means there are interdependent too much. If one thing breaks, rest all breaks. That means it has a central database. Centralized database means almost say for example, for you have for example you in there like other than this micro like monolithic, there is something called as microservice. In microservice, what happens? You'll be having different databases, whereas here the database is interlaced, and then this is called a single deployment. So what is single deployment? Say for example, you make any changes inside your UI, inside your logic, inside database, you have to redeploy the entire application. Okay. The performance efficiency. It is faster communication between components. Since everything is together, the communication will be efficient, but it has a withdraw. So what are those withdraws? You can see the disadvantages. The scalability issues. That means you cannot scale individual components separately. Okay, here you can say I cannot scale this UI separately, logic separately, databases. Since everything is together, you'll be having issues with scalability, and it is difficult to maintain, right? It's very hard to maintain because you are like stuffing everything at a one place. So it becomes hard to redeploy to make any changes. So even if there is small changes, it requires redeployment of the entire application. Okay, and then it is longer to build and deployment time because as the application grows, your code grows, it becomes messy because everything is at a single place. You don't know like how is the like how much the UI is growing, how much the backend is growing, how much the database is growing. Since even though if there are many small changes or example like anything, it takes much time. So why do we use this? The reason where we like where we use this is usually it is used inside small to medium sized applications. Okay, usually this is used in startups, and then there is something called as MVPs for quick development. So this monolithic architecture is used with small and medium sized application, not large applications. Small because you have everything at one place, right? So if a new guy is learning something, if he is following this monolithic architecture, it will be easier for him. And then the application with small business logic and low scalability. Scalability means how much it grows. Okay. Here you can see in the diagram. For example, if you are developing an e-commerce application, here your UI, your catalog service is nothing but a backend. Okay, and then your SE service, discount service, order service, everything is at a single place. This is a problem, right? because whenever there is a small change inside the shop UI, the entire thing should be redeployed. This is an issue. So what is another option other than this monolithic? There is something called as microservices. So inside the name itself, will say micro means small, services means like some work. Okay. The microservice is one of the architecture in a software design where application is broken down into smaller pieces. Okay. And here you can see this small pieces is independent services that communicate with each other through APIs. Okay, since service is designed to handle specific business function, makes the system more modular and easier to maintain. So what this is saying is, instead of developing an entire application at once, you divide this as a micro. That means this is one micro, second micro, third micro, fourth micro, and then you like combine together and then make them communicate with each other. Okay, that is nothing but your microservices. What are the key characterizing microservice architecture? You understood, right? It is independent and modular. So what I'm basically doing is in the diagram you can see here. So what I'm doing here, you can see in the same diagram here. This is a microservice. Okay, this is a monolith. Okay, in microservice, what happens? I'm separating the logic into different individual services. Okay, say for example, if I want a catalog service, instead of in a monolithic, instead of writing like everything together, in catalog, what I'll do, I'll separate the catalog separately. And then I'll separate shopping cart as a separate microservice. And then discount as a separate microservice, ordering as a separate microservice. So each microservice is individual. That means it will be having its own database. That means, for example, in my application, if there is something related to shopping, the entire logic related to shopping will be handled by this microservice shopping cart. Okay. If there is something regarding discount, this discount microservice will handle everything. And this microservices are individual because the reason why, because everyone has its own database. Okay. Here you can see what are the key characteristics of microservice architecture. One is it is independent and modular. We saw here, right? Everything is independent and it has its own database. And then each microservice is self-contained unit responsible for specific functionality. Here you can see. Say, for example, if I want to develop something logic related to payments, I'll create a payments microservice. So every logic, every database queries related to payments will be handled individually by this payments microservice. Okay. And then say, for example, I have this microservices. Okay, I have divided. Now say, for example, this discount requires some shopping cart data, or else this catalog requires some ordering data. So how is this possible? Because everything is individual, right? In this also, the microservice can communicate with another microservices. Here, this catalog is a separate microservice. But if this catalog wants some data with ordering microservice, it can communicate with each other through what? Here you can say I have mentioned through API-based communication. Okay. Microservice communicate with each other using lightweight protocols like REST, there is something called as gRPC something. So here you can see REST is based nothing but your APIs based communication. Okay. And then here, this is the decentralized data management. Here you can see right in this diagram, the database is not centralized because each microservice has its own database. Okay, here the database is not centralized. Since it's not centralized, there won't be much like overweight or overloaded in the database. And then each microservice has its own database, allowing better data isolation and flexibility. Yeah, right. And then scalability and flexibility. Individual services can be scaled and independently based on demand, improvement, resource efficiency. Okay. What does this mean by is every microservice, so don't get confused by these fancy terms. So microservice is nothing but an architecture. Here what happens, instead of writing your whole application as an individual component or an individual like app, you'll split it based on your requirements. Okay. You'll split as a catalog, shopping cart, discount, order, users, payments, or different things. So everything is called as a microservice. Okay. Every microservice will be having its own database. And this microservice is responsible for what it belongs to. If this microservice belongs to discount, so in your application, the entire discount APIs and all will be handled by this microservice. Okay, the microservice can communicate with another microservices through API communication. Okay, what are the advantages here? Here you can see this is more scalable, right? Since I can break down my application. If, for example, if this is not working, all the rest three will work, but my application won't get crashed. If this is inside a single application, even though if one is not working, the entire application will crash, right? Here, since everything is individual, what happens, even though one microservice is down, the rest all will be working, okay? And then it is scalable, okay? Since it is individual, okay? And then it has faster development and deployment. Different teams can work on different services in parallel. So what this point is saying here, say for example, if you're using single application and there are some like 10 to 20 guys working on a single component. If it is a single application, it is hectic. Since microservice, everything is individual, so each and every team can work separately and individually on it, okay? And then there are some technical flexibilities. Here you can see different programming languages. So every microservice is not restricted to a particular language. Here, this microservice catalog can be designed in Java. The shopping cart, you can write the REST APIs in Python. Here you can use .NET. It's up to you guys, okay? That are this is a huge advantage when it comes to development because this is not language specific. Because at the end, you'll be just getting the REST APIs, right? And then it has easier management and it has better resolution, like resource utilization. Only the necessary components are scaled, okay? If there are some, say for example, like for example, this ordering microservice is getting too many requests. So what I can do, I can scale this separately because this is an individual microservice. Okay, real world examples are, for example, like Netflix and Amazon. So what does Netflix do? It uses microservices to handle video streams separately, recommendations separately, authentication separately. Okay. You can see big companies and all. So if you're in your job or working as a backend developer, right? Almost 99% of the companies will use microservice architecture. Only some few companies will use monolithic. That's it. So microservice is kind of like the industry standard in nowadays. Okay. If you're building backend with REST APIs. And then Amazon also, what happens? It scales individual services for orders, payments, inventory, users, different stuff. Okay, and then now you understood, right? The difference between monolithic and microservice. And then there is something called as an API gateway. So why do we need this API gateway? Here you can see in the diagram itself, I have specified. What happens is, say for example, you have some 20 microservice. As a developer, what happens if I say, as a developer, if I want to send some request, I have to remember all the 100 to 200 microservices which are there, which is a huge task for me. So what happens inside, I will create something called as an API gateway. In the name itself, it acts as a gate. That means if I want to access this microservice, I should access to this gate. So what is this gate? API gateway. Okay, so whatever request I'm sending from the browser, it actually hits the API gateway. And then what does the API gateway do? Based on the request you sent, it will search which microservice should I get the data, and then it will send that request to microservice. Microservice will return back the response to API gateway, and then this API gateway will send the response back. Okay, this is the workflow. In real world, you don't directly communicate with the microservices. You'll create something called as an API gateway. And then whatever request you are there from the browser, you are hitting the API gateway. The request will be sent here and then API gateway will send the request further down. And then the microservices will send back the response to gateway. Gateway will send back the response to your application. Okay, did you understand this? So here you can see API gateway is a server that acts as a entry point, okay, to the client request to responses. It manages API request. It handles authentication, load balancing, logging, security, different stuff like API rating and all, rate limiting and all. So where you can handle, say for example, since I know what all the request is there, it is hitting gateway. So now the very important thing to remember here is, I don't have to say, for example, if I want to use authentication, authorization, security, rate limiting and all, I don't have to create for each and every individual microservices. What I can do, I can implement everything related to my security, related to smooth communication, load balancing, authentication, logging, request handlers, everything I can implement inside the gateway itself. You just implement it once, and then whatever request goes through here, it gets authenticated, authorized, and then it goes to the microservice, and then it will return the response back. Okay. This gateway acts as a middleman. we cannot directly communicate with the microservices. You can communicate, but you should not. Through the gateway itself, you should have to communicate. What are the key characters? Here you can see this acts as a centralized point for the clients. Okay, say for example, you're sending requests from any website, mobile or third-party apps. All the requests will go through the API gateway instead of directly communicating with the microservices. Okay, because the reason is all the security related things will be implemented in the gateway. So through the gateway itself, your request should go through the to the microservices. Okay, it acts as a single point across all the services, and then you can implement all your OAuth, JWT, API keys, and then like protect security against everything can be implemented inside your API gateway itself here in this. Okay. What are the advantages? Advantages is very similar. It is simple and then client communication. Clients don't need to interact with multiple microservices directly. Yeah, right. Yes, and it becomes hectic. So what you have to do is just interact with the gateway. It improvises security as well as firewall, protecting backend services. And then it has a better performance for caching. Even in the API gateway, you can implement caching and all. And then also it can effectively like manage traffic using load balance or API rate limiting. Okay. And then it has some standardized authentication, centralized user for authentication and authorization. And also it reduces complexity because I don't have to handle authentication, logging inside each and every microservices. In real world application, there will be some 200 to 300 microservices. So imagine the time it takes to implement authentication and authorization inside individual. It becomes hectic, right? So through this gateway, I can once implement everything here itself. Okay. Now you understood, right? These are very important to understand. I'll just explain. Monolithic means you'll write the whole application inside a single project. That means inside single app. All your UI services, backend, frontend, database, everything. Here, this is okay, but this also has some disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? It is difficult to maintain. Even if there is some small change, the entire thing should be redeployed again. To avoid this, there is an architecture called as microservice. Microservice means you divide your application into individual services. Each service is called as a microservice. It will be having its own database. So microservices can communicate with each other. And then whenever I want to send some request or access some data through microservice, I should not directly access. I have something called as a gateway. Through this gateway will be having all the authentication, authorization, security steps and all. So all the requests go through this API gateway, and then this gateway will again send the request to the microservice. What does the microservice do? It will send back the response. Okay, this is your typical architecture. These topics are very huge in a development. Say, for example, we are just learning the theory of it. If you want to implement it, it will take you months together because when you come across microservices in real world times, right, you'll be facing a lot of issues here. So as of now, you just need to know the terms and then how does it work so that in future, if you want to develop something like this, it will be easier to reference. Okay. And then we understood what is API gateway. So now let's start with Firebase. Okay. So what is Firebase? So Firebase is nothing but a backend as a service by Google. So what is backend as a service? You could have come across something called as SaaS. SaaS, right? SaaS means software as a service, but Firebase is a backend as service. That means Google, right? What they did, they created a platform or a software. What does this do? This will basically handle your backend database inside a single application. Okay. This is a no code tool. So you don't have to code here anything. Okay. You just need to implement it inside whichever project you want. Say, for example, if I want to develop full stack applications, right? So what do I need? I need like front-end framework like React or Angular, and then a backend like a .NET or a Express or Node, and then the database, which is MongoDB or SQL. So here what happened is Google, they created something called as a Firebase. With this Firebase, you just create a front end. Your backend and database is handled by this Firebase itself. You don't have to worry about writing huge codes. Okay, everything will be handled by the Firebase itself. Okay, helps the developers to build mobile applications without managing backend infrastructure and databases. Okay, did you understand this point? you can build a full stack application without managing the backend infrastructure and databases. Okay, this is also has an inbuilt support for the cloud. Okay, then this follows a NoSQL cloud database. What is NoSQL? We saw, right? NoSQL, the database is similar to your MongoDB. That means the data is stored in the form of collections and documents. Okay, we'll go through that and then efficiently applications. And then also it allows real-time data synchronization. Okay. And what are the core features? Here you can see it has some real-time database. That means NoSQL, that means the syncing database in real time. NoSQL cloud database for syncing database in real time. That means whenever there is some change in your database, it actually reflects in the real time. Okay. And then you have support for Cloud Firestore, which is also a scalable non database with offline support. And then you have some tools for authentication, cloud storage to store your images, files, documents, and then some functions and then hosting. So everything is inbuilt given by the Firebase itself. You don't have to worry about how to implement this in the code. Okay. And then it also supports cross platforms. That means it can work on web applications, native applications, and also cross platform applications. Okay. So now let's see how do we set this up. Okay, first what we do is we'll go to Google Chrome. Go to Chrome. I'll type Firebase. Okay. So click on Firebase. You'll see here Firebase was a company that developed backend software. It was founded in San Francisco. Okay, it was bought by Google. Okay. Here you can see this is an app. If I click on this link, right, what does this do? This will automatically logs in. If it doesn't log in, you should have to log in here. Mine here, it is automatically logged in. Okay. Once you log in inside your Firebase, here you can see this is an app. If you scroll down, you can see some documentation and all here. How you can use it for authentication, which companies are using and all. So once you have logged in, here, next to your login, there is a button called as Go to Console. Okay, you need to click on this. Go to Console. Once you click on this, it will load. Let it load. So here you can see you'll be having some two options here, like create project or some other thing. So since I already have a project here, you need to click on this right click option called as create project. Okay, if it is not there, you can also click on this button, create project. So here it will ask, enter your project name. Okay, what I'll do, I'll just add something like movie app. Okay, just hit on continue. Once you create a project, it will ask for an AI assistance. It's up to you guys. If you want, you can enable this. I won't enable this. And then continue. And then it will ask, should I implement Google Analytics inside your Firebase project? No, I don't want this. So I will disable this option. And then you should hit on create project. Okay. It will take some time. You understood, right? First, you need to go to Firebase and then a console. Once you go to console, you need to click on create project and then give the project name. So yeah, you can see your Firebase project is ready. What is my project name? Movie app. So what I need to do, I'll hit on continue. Okay. Once I click on continue, here you can see this is your Firebase dashboard. Okay. Here you can see this is my project name, right? I gave earlier movie app and then get started by Firebase. Here you can see this is all your documentation. That means your dashboard of the project. Okay. Here you can see in this option, you're using this project, where do I need to get started? You have different options here. One is Apple, which is iOS, Android, web, Unity, which is used to build for games, and then Flutter. It's up to you guys. Since we are using web, we should click on web. So, but before that, to the right side, okay, you'll be having a settings icon here. Here you can see you can access your project settings. You can give a project name, project ID, web API, so different things can be set up here. Okay. I'll go to my movie app itself. So once that is done, to the left side, these are three most important services which are offered by your Firebase. One is called as build, run, analytics. So if I click on this build here, you can see this Firebase offers these many services for you freely. So what are those? App checking, app hosting also it is provided by the Firebase itself. Authentication, data connect, Firestore database functions, machine learning, real-time database, storage to store your data. And then after this build, you have also run. Run is for your testing. Here you can see testing and all. You can access inside the run. Analytics, it is used to check your performance of your application. Okay. We'll go through this and all. So I just want to guys to get familiar with what and all icons and stuff which is there inside your Firebase. So once this is done, since I need to create a web, I'll click on this web icon here. Okay. Once you click on this web, it will ask to register an app by giving a nickname. Oh, this is up to you guys. You can give any nickname you want. I'll just give the same name itself, movie app one. Okay, it's up to you guys. You can give any nickname. Once that is done, if you want to host it, right, you can check on this box. But since we won't be hosting, I'll just hit on register app. Okay. Once you hit on this, what happens? It will generate a code. Here you can see add Firebase SDK. So here what happens once you register your app, it will generate a code through npm. So now I need to install this inside my React application to connect to this Firebase. So how do I do that? I'll go to my VS Code. Here I'll create a new project. Okay. Movie app. Okay. Inside movie app, what I need to do? Open in integrated terminal. And then here, I need to create React application. npm create write at latest. Okay. Once you do this, I'll click dot because I want to create inside the same folder. And then you need to select the framework and then JavaScript. And then npm I to install. Once this is done, you need to install this also, right? Here you can see it is saying this command. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this. Once this get installed, I'll install this also. Firebase inside my React application. Okay. It's taking some time. Let's wait. By the time you can see here, this is the command to install the Firebase. This is your Firebase settings files. So you need to include this inside your React application so that it connects to the Firebase. Here you can see you'll be having some API keys, auth domain. So you don't have to worry about this. Firebase only will handle everything for you. Okay. Got it installed. Yeah, it's successfully installed. Now I need to install my Firebase also. Okay. npm install Firebase. That is, by the time here you can see if I open my application, I'll just clean up my application. I'll remove this app.jsx preloaded data, which I don't need. I'll remove this. I'll remove this state. I don't want this unnecessary stuff. And then no, this is okay, I guess. I'll let it install. By the time, while this is installing, inside your SRC, right, you need to create a new folder called as config. Okay. To add your configurations for your Firebase. So inside config, you need to create a new file called as firebase.js. Okay. Once you do this, where is your configuration file for Firebase? This one, right? I'll copy this. I'll go to my config firebase.js and then just paste it. Okay. This is still installing. Let it install. So once this part is done, you need to do two things here. So one is first you need to export this app because we'll be using this app whenever we want to make a connection to the Firebase. Okay, you don't have to worry about this code. This is generated by the Firebase itself. Okay. Once you do this, after this app, you need to export another thing called as auth for your authorization. Whenever you want to sign in and log in, right, you need to use this. So how do you do that? So here I'll remove all these comments so that it won't be confusing. My Firebase hasn't been successfully installed. If I go to my package or JSON, here you can see Firebase has been installed. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll come here inside Firebase. Once you export this app, you need to export another component called as auth. So how do you do that? First, you need to import from Firebase/auth. Okay. Inside this folder, there is a package called as getAuth. Here you can see. You need to select this. Using this, you need to export an auth. So how do you do that? Export const auth is equals to getAuth of app. Okay. You need to pass this app inside your getAuth. I mentioned this in the PPT here. First, you need to log in and then you need to set up the React project and then create a config, firebase.js, copy paste the code, export app and auth. Okay. Once you do this, you need to come to your app.jsx. Okay. I'll create two components to sign in and log in. Okay. So what do I do? I'll go to src, create a folder, components. Inside that, login.jsx, and then .jsx. Okay. Here you don't have to worry about CSS. I'll be just creating sample HTML files. If I write CSS also, it will consume too much amount of time. Okay. I'll be just implementing Firebase. Okay. So once you do this, here what I will do inside sign up, I'll just create a h1 tag from user sign up to sign up. Okay. Inside here, what I will do, I'll add a BR. BR is for your break line, which leaves a line. Inside here, I'll add a input field. Okay, one is enter email. Okay. And then input placeholder, enter password. Okay. Once I do this, and then get another BR, and I'll add a button. Okay. Sign up. Okay. Once you do this, what happens here? If you go to your Firebase, once you do this, right, once you have implemented this config, you need to click on continue to console. Okay. Once you do that, here you can see one app has been successfully running. Here inside project, you can use multiple applications. Okay, it's up to you guys. So now there is only one app. So now inside build, we need to set up authentication. Okay, the user login and logout system. So you should click on this authentication inside the build. So once you click on this, it will ask authentication and manage users from variety providers without server-side code. Okay. So now what happens? This is basically saying that you can manage all your authentication without having to worry about tokens and all. Okay, this is now is taken care by the Firebase itself. And then you should have to click on get started. Okay, once you click on this, you'll get some set of options. We'll go through that. Here you can see you can use authentication on two methods. So one is native, that means by email and password, phone or anonymous. Second is by third-party providers. So what are this? We went through this, right? These are your auths. Okay, through your third-party services, you can log in or sign up, or else through your native providers. So for this app, we'll be using native, which is email and password. So I'll click on that, and then you need to click on email and password enable. This email link, you don't have to enable this. Only this email and password and then save. So once you click on this, it will say email and password is enabled. So now if I click on users here, there are no users. So that means there is no users to log in. So now what we need to do first, we need to create a user. So how do you do that? There are two ways. So one is you can create the user here itself, but we don't want to create it here. We need to create inside the React application, which comes and adds inside our Firebase database, okay, inside our Firebase cloud. So how do you do that? For that, go to your sign up, create two input fields, email and password, and then a button. Okay, and then you need to add this component inside your app.js Xrite, or else it won't be visible. Sign up, check my, and then I need to run my project, right? npm run dev. So I'll open this inside the browser. I'll add a BR here also. Breakline. So keep it separate. Now here you can see I have a email and password and a sign up button. Okay, you don't have to worry about CSS because this is not a CSS class. This is a Firebase class. Okay, so now what I need to do, I'll just open the console. Okay, now if you want to create a user, right, the syntax is first you need to import some modules. You can say I mentioned in the inside the PPT. First, you need to use authentication. So once you set up, right, you need to enable, then you need to create two components, sign up and login. Inside sign up, right, you need to set up form data through email and password. And then you need to use a function called as create with username and password. Okay. This function takes auth, email, password, and then a dot, then dot catch, because this is a promise. Okay. How do we implement that? So I'll go to my sign in. I need to import from Firebase /auth. Okay. The function name is create user with email and password. Okay. And then I need to import another thing, which auth. Where is my auth? Inside my local repository, right? From slash. We should have to use double dot because you need to come back and go inside the folder again. Firebase. Inside here, I need to use auth. Okay. Once I imported this too, I'll create a button on click event. When I click on this, handle sign up. Okay. Now components. So what are control components? Control components means your form data is handled by the states. Okay. I'll put email comma set email, and similar one I'll add it for password. Yeah. This is also set password. Okay. I created two states. Now I need to register this with my input. So how to do that? First, inside value, you need to add your state. And then inside on change event, you have to take a callback function which takes an event as a parameter, and then inside this arrow function, what you have to do, set email e dot target dot value. Similar way, you need to add inside the input also. Okay. We'll learn this in control components, right? Password, and then on change event e dot target dot value. Yeah, sorry, should be value. Yeah, once this is done, that means now whatever change has been, like whatever I enter inside my input, I can access it inside my states. Sorry, I need to set password here. Set password. Okay. So now once this is done, I can successfully pass the states inside my create user with email and password. So how to do that? Email, password. Since this is a promise, there are two ways, right? One, you can use async await. Other than this, you can use dot, then, sorry, dot, then, dot, catch. And then another one is you can use dot catch. So what does dot then dot catch do? If it is successful, this function gets executed, right? Now just log a simple statement. Sign up, success. If there is an error, I'll just console log the error itself. Okay. Okay. So now let's see signing this up. So I'll come here. I'll refresh this. So now here I need to enter an email and password. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll enter the email. Sam at gmail.com. I'll keep this small. Sam at gmail.com. Sam123. Okay, this is my email and password. So now as soon as I click on sign up, what happens? This function gets called. It will create a username and password. We should have to pass this out, email password. If it is successful, dot then will get executed. If it is error, dot catch gets executed. Now we'll see that if I click on sign up, what happened? Yeah, mine is successful. Okay, sign up successful. That means you have successfully connected your Firebase with your React application. Okay. Now if I go to my Firebase, right, here you can see there are no users. As soon as I hit on refresh, you will see what happens. Sam has been added inside my Firebase. Okay, this is how you create users. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll create a login component. So login will be similar to my sign up. Okay. I'll copy paste the same code here because like most of it is the same itself. Yeah. And what I need to do, I need to import this use state and auth. I'll import these three things. I don't need this. So here what happens, once I created a user, right, I need to log in. So how do I do that? Instead of create user, you need to import something called as a sign in with email and password. Okay, I have mentioned in the PPT here. Once you create sign up inside login, you need to use a function called as sign with email and password. This also takes the same parameter auth, email and password dot then dot catch. Okay, it is similar to your create user. So now what I'll do, I'll keep everything same. I'll copy these states and functions also. Come here, I'll paste. Because since we have less time, I'm just copy pasting the code which I have written already. So here what I'll do, instead of handle sign up, I'll do handle login. Okay. So copy this. I'll paste it inside my on-click function. So I'll change this to login. Okay. Once this is done, instead of this function, what do I need to do? I need to add this. That's it. It's as simple as that. If you want to implement the same thing in Express, right, it will take you some like 1 to 2 hours because you have to worry about tokens, different tokens, check the roles and all. Here you don't have to worry about all this. Firebase will take care of it. Okay, sign in with email and password auth, email password. Here, whenever you sign in, right, if it is successful, it will return a value. You can access and print this value along with my console. Okay. It's up to you. You can access or else you can just simply put login successful. Okay. And then rest and all it is same email and then password. And then I'm setting inside the states on change target and then handle login comes here, sign in with username and password. Okay. You can see I mentioned everything inside the PPT. So now let's try to log in. I have a user called as Sam at gmail.com. What is password? Sam123. So now I need to access this login component. So how do I do that? I'll come here, I'll comment the sign up. I'll call this login component. Here, what happens is if you're building a real-time application, you need to use routing. Okay. You need to use different routings for sign up, different routing for login and all. Okay. Here, I'll come here. I have the login page. Okay. So here I need to enter the same user. Say, for example, I'll enter some dummy user who is not there. For example, like John. John is not there, right? So what happens as soon as I click on login, I'll get an error here. Error. But if I click on Sam, I should get a success. Because Sam is a user which I created, right? I'll clear. You can see login is successful. Okay, and then it returns a value. Inside value, what is there? Whichever user has logged in. Okay. So now inside the Firebase, we have successfully implemented sign in and login. Okay. Now what happens as soon as I click on login, I need to go to my profile page, like a movie page. Okay. Now you got to know, right? How do you create login? And then how do you create your, what do you call it as? Sign up page. So now how do I know whether the user is logged in? If the user is logged in, I need some kind of name here, right? So for that, there is another function called as on auth state change. Okay. What this basically does is whenever the user logs in, this function gets triggered and then you can set the user. Okay. If the user is logged out, what happens? This function again gets triggered. The state gets removed. Okay. We'll see how do we implement that. So once you go to login, what happens? I'll add a small text here saying that the username inside the here itself. Add a p tag. I'll add the email here. So now let's so now how it look? It look like this. So now there is no user here. Okay, what I'll do? We need to implement this on auth state changed. Okay. How do you do that? Come here, import from Firebase slash auth. And then which function you need to import? On auth state changed. Okay, you need to implement this function inside an use effect. The reason why, because I need to render this function only once. Once a component gets initialized and then empty dependency. That means this will run only once. Okay, inside here on auth state changed. What does this take? This will takes the auth. So I need to import the auth also, right? From Firebase slash, sorry, which is from the local folder, right? Dot slash config slash Firebase. So from this, I need to import auth. Okay. Once I do this, I need to first pass the first parameter auth. Second parameter is a callback function. This has a access to a property called as user. Okay. So now I'll create a two condition. If user is there, what does that mean? That means the user is logged in. Okay. That means inside, else logged out. Okay. This is what basically I'm trying to do. Inside auth state changed, you need to pass an auth and then a callback function which has an access to user. I mentioned here auth and user. If the user is there, welcome user, or else user is logged out. So how do I do that? I'll come here, I'll set a state here. Okay. Const user comma set user is equals to use state. Okay, here I'll put empty. If the user is there, right, I'll set it as a state. Okay, how do I do that? Set user. Okay. Else set user empty, nothing. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll come back, I'll refresh. Sorry, I need to access the email, right? User.email. Okay. So here again, there is nothing here. I'll refresh. I'll try to log in. Let me log this and see what I'm actually getting here. Comma user. Refresh. Logged in user inside. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm not accessing the here, right? Actually, the data is coming, but I'm not accessing that. So how do I access that? User. Okay. You can see. Welcome, Sam. Okay. Now I can successfully access. Say, for example, if I want to log out. So how do I do that? It's very simple. Inside the login itself, I'll add another button here. I'll add here itself inside JSX. It will be more easier. Button, logout. So on this, create an on-click event, takes an arrow function. Okay, inside here, you'll be having an access to another function called as sign out. Okay, at starting, I know it will be confusing to remember this function's names, but like as you type, like as you write the code, you'll get familiar with it. Okay, this also here you can see it takes an auth parameter. So I'll just pass auth. That's it. It's as simple as that. You can see within one line, I can create a sign out. I'll come here. If I click on logout, you can see the user is gone. Yeah, right. So now what I'll do, I'll go to my sign up and I'll create another user. I'll comment this login. Now, so now this is a sign up page. Okay. Since we are not using routes here, I'm just using commenting and uncommenting, or else since you guys know routing, right? You can use the same application and add routings for this. Okay. I'll create another user. Just a minute. Deva. Okay, I'll create sign up. What I'm getting inside message here? I'll just try to refresh. Deva@gmail.com. You can see sign up is success. So now if I go to my Firebase, I'll be having two users now. If I refresh, right, you can see I'm having two users, Deva and Sam. Yeah, right. And then what I'll do, I'll create another user also. Since I'm having already here, I'll refresh again. Akhil. Gmail.com. Okay, I click on sign up. I got another user. So I'll come here, I'll refresh. I got another user, Akhil here. So now I'll log in as Akhil. What I'll do, I'll comment this sign up. I'll uncomment this login. So now I got the login page. So here you can see Akhil has been already logged in. So now if I want to log in as Deva, so first I need to log out, right? I'll go to log out, Akhil is gone. And now if I want to log in as Deva, refresh. Password 123. You can see I got Deva. The login, the Deva is gone. I'll again log in as Select gmail.com. Password is okay, 123. Okay, login. I refresh this. Select gmail.com. Some problem with this. Just log in as Sam itself. I guess I did some mistake in password, I guess. Yeah, this is working fine. Now Sam is working fine. So now what I need to do is, so now which topics we covered, we created. How do we log into Firebase? How do we set up in React? How do we do authentication? How do we do sign up, login? And then how do we check if the user is logged in or not using auth or using auth on auth state changed. Okay, here you can see I can create sign in, I can create login, I can create logout. I click on logout, the user is gone. Okay, so now our authentication is done. So now let's try to connect our databases. So here you can see all the users are coming here. So how do we connect our database? So for that, you need to use something called as inside build Firestore database. You can also use real-time database to actually build. Whenever you're building an application for real time, you can use this. But for this project, we'll be just for this learning purpose, we'll be using Firestore database. So once you click on this, you can see here. You can see you need to click on, and then you need to set up some default location. I'll just keep it as it is. Hit on next. You have two options, production mode and test mode. We'll be using test mode. Create. Take some time. So this is how your Firestore, like Firebase database will look like. JSON. Here you can see there's something called as a start collection. I'll click on, you should mention a collection ID. I'll create movies. Okay, next. Here, what is the document ID? I'll just keep it as auto ID. That means the ID will generated. Field name, movie name. What is the type string? Avatar. Not another field. Just make it as ratings, number 8. So click on save. Here you can see what happens. A collection is created. What is a collection? Collection is a nothing but your table. Okay. Inside collection, you have a document. What is document? Sorry, collection is your database. Document, a collection is a table. Document are your rows. Here, rows are nothing but your JSON data inside your non-SQL database. Okay. Documents are nothing but your rows. Every document will be having a unique ID. If I click on this document, here you can see there is a movie name author rating 8. Here I can add another field also. It's up to you guys. I'll create another document here. I'll create auto ID, movie name, string, value. I'll add ratings, number, 7. Here you can see there are 2 documents. Okay, this is how your Firebase stores the data inside your documents. Okay, we'll just create a simple form to add this data from here. Okay, so okay, actually, you guys need to take tests now. I have been informed. So other than this, so now we have successfully got to know how do we connect this, right? Front end and back end to our Firestore database. So like most of our topics are done. I'll be sharing this PPT here. I have mentioned how you can do all the different stuff. So since you guys will be taking tests now, I'll be sharing this PPT with the ma'am. You can go through this. Other than that, yeah, if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Yes, I'm sharing the link into the chat box. So please start taking the test. Yeah, I hope everybody marked the attendance and everybody submitted the test. So thank you so much. So we successfully completed this program. Thanks everybody for your active participation from last 15 days. And coming to the certification, you will receive the certificate within next 8 to 15 working days. Those who are going to give their attendance, be like completed their attendance 6 and more than 60%, they will get the certificate via their registered mail ID. I hope it's clear. So thank you and bye bye. And we'll see you into the next program of Excel. Thank you. Bye guys. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family.